Well, I'm talking with Dr. Alex Allinson today about abortion subject. We had you in, of course, talking about year 3, and I particularly parked this for another day because it's obviously a massive subject, and well, it's now law. I mean,
Yep.
What about on Tynwald Day itself? I sat there in the journalist area waiting, thinking if this will be the moment that if anything's going to kick off, it will. And no one said a word. It all went smoothly. You surprised?
No, actually, I was relieved. I mean, one of the whole aspects of the bill is to normalise abortion, to say, look, this is not a criminal offence. This is part of healthcare. So I actually, it wasn't anti-climax, but I don't think anyone particularly celebrated that day. It was just job done. We have passed the law, and I think it is the best law in the British Isles.
What makes it the best law?
Because we've decriminalised the abortion.
Completely?
Yeah.
And nowhere else has done that yet?
No. Nobody else in the British Isles has decriminalised abortion. Nobody else in the British Isles has changed the focus so it's purely on healthcare, and that person who needs that advice and counselling gets it. Nobody else has made it mandatory that person be offered counselling before and after, and also put in all the safety provisions we've got to make sure that woman is given the right time and enough time to make the right decision for them, and then actually goes through the process. So I think it's a really good bit of legislation. It also is, again, first place in the British Isles that has brought in safety zones from day one.
And that's been challenged in the UK, of course. So just recently, it hasn't been tested here yet. I mean, do you think it will be tested?
Almost certainly. One of the problems with anything to do with human rights, but particularly women's rights, is that they are always under threat. And so the passage of legislation like the Abortion Reform Bill is only the first step. Unfortunately, groups like CALM will never be able to disband. It will always be under threat by those people who are anti-abortion. And so this is the first step. What now has to happen, and has happened, is women on the Isle of Man are having terminations of unwanted pregnancies after counselling on the Isle of Man. And some are then, because they need slightly more complicated procedures, are going across to the UK, but that is being referred by the Isle of Man NHS, and they are being funded. Both their travel and the procedure itself is being funded. And
it's legal there to do whatever you're saying to do. It's not like one of those things where you know.
No,
you have problems
our
with
legislation is different, but actually it mirrors a lot of the provisions in the UK legislation, but goes way beyond that in terms of being quite open and honest about the indications for a woman who may need an abortion. So there have been no problems with women going across and having those done. What we need to do, though, is make sure that people are clear about accessing abortion services. They know that actually they don't have to go through their GP. They can ring a telephone number, they can have counselling, they can be referred to the right person for them, and actually get the care and the counselling that they need to make the right decision for them.
It's almost incredible the young man's gone from one extreme almost to the other.
Absolutely, but we can do that. And one of the things with this administration is we don't have to just catch up, we can leapfrog. And I think we've done that with abortion legislation. We can do that with other bits of legislation coming through as well.
How many people have been through the system? I don't even know if you know those sort of numbers. I mean, but how has it been used?
Absolutely
these new laws.
Absolutely. I don't want to give the number out because that's confidential for the service. There are women being referred off island where appropriate. There are women having terminations on island.
So terminations have taken place here.
Absolutely,
right.
and so they should. So they should do. We cannot continue to export women to send them away for care that can be provided on the island. What we are in now is a transition period to get the service right. The legislation's right, the regulations are right. We now need to get the service. And one of the things that Minister Ashford was keen on doing when I asked him was having a holistic sexual health service. At the moment we've got the GUM clinic, we've got family planning, and now we've got an abortion service. GUM council people, family planning council people, abortion services council people. Surely we could integrate that, get all those people with their skills together, so that if somebody comes in and they want to talk about contraception and they're worried about sexually transmitted disease and they want some advice about termination, they can have it at the same
shop.
Yeah,
no silos.
Again, and it brings things together. And we've talked previously about one of the problems with the health service is people being shifted from pillar to post. That's what we need to get right with abortion services, that there is a single phone number people ring, and when they ring that, they know what to expect. They know that they'll be seen by the right people at the right time, and the right service will be delivered for them. And we've got a bit of a way to go to get that.
Has there been any testing of it? Anybody against it putting pressure on people? Have you been getting any more difficult phone calls or emails or mail?
I continue to get emails about abortion. There are people who have quite strong feelings and are very anti-abortion, and I appreciate their point of view. What that point of view shouldn't do, though, is stop other people receiving healthcare. We now have a law on this island, and one of the things is to normalise that. This should have happened 50 years ago. Have
we been in a situation where people from the United Kingdom actually look to come to the Isle of Man to have an abortion because it's legal?
No.
Is it possible in any shape, form or fashion if they move here and stay here?
That was one of the concerns from Tynwald members, and so our legislation is quite specific that you have to be a resident of the Isle of Man to actually have a termination on the Isle of Man, except in an emergency situation, except if it was risking a woman's life, which was one of the issues in Southern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, where a young woman died because people weren't sure whether they could give her the healthcare she needed. We can on the Isle of Man.
Any tweaking needed on the legislation so far?
On the legislation, no. I mean, again,
just
but we need
the right places.
What we need to do is make sure it's implemented to its fullest, and we need to build a service around that legislation to actually provide the service that people on this island want.
And this will be it. No, that law should now be enforced for.
I think with the amount of time and effort put in by Tynwald members, I think we've got a really good bit of legislation, a bit of paper, which will last for the next couple of decades. It future-proofs things like telephone counselling. It future-proofs things like if somebody needs medication that can be dispensed by a pharmacist rather than being dragged into hospital. It gives us the ability to expand and develop a service on the Isle of Man, which would really, I suppose, be an example to other jurisdictions how with the right will and the right dedication by healthcare staff you can provide the right service.